Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about how to do academic research using the Consensus AI search engine. I'm going to be doing a kind of product review, taking you through some of its features and how I would go about starting off researching a topic using this tool. This is sponsored content, but Consensus haven't told me what to say about this, so I'm going to be going through their product and giving you my honest opinion on whether it does a good job of academic search in philosophy. Okay, so let's dive straight into that. So first up, what is Consensus? It's an academic search engine powered by AI, and the important thing is when it's searching for information for you, it's doing that from peer-reviewed academic papers. So it's not just getting random opinions from blogs and websites and stuff, okay? It's getting you information from peer-reviewed academic publications. So that should in theory mean that the quality of the information it's presenting to you is going to be more rigorous and it's going to be more useful in your own academic research. And as we're going to see, what it does is it's not just going to give you like the AI summary highlight, but it's going to tell you the references where it's got that from. It's going to show you those references. So it's going to allow you to check and verify that what it's saying really is what those papers are saying. Now, personally, I found this really useful, not just as a way of summarizing a topic, which you can do with lots of AI tools, but to find the references, the papers that I need to start researching an academic topic. Often when you start a bit of research in an area that you're not familiar with, like where are you going to go and look? You can just start searching the web randomly, or you can go to Google Scholar, but typically that is going to pull up a whole bunch of papers, a whole load of information, and most of them are going to be irrelevant. Consensus, on the other hand, it's going to bring up a small number of pretty relevant papers, okay? So if that works well, that's going to be a much better starting place. But is that what actually happens in practice? Let's take a look. Okay, so here's the landing screen when I go to consensus.app. It basically comes up nice and clean. It's just a search box. So I'm going to put in there my research question. What is higher order metaphysics? So I've picked this because I think it's going to be a particularly tricky one. Higher order metaphysics it's an idea that's been around for a while, but really in the last maybe couple of years, the last decade, it's become a super hot topic in analytic metaphysics. So I'm kind of interested in, is the search engine going to pick up on that kind of recent literature? There's been kind of like a lot of that recently, but is it going to pick up on it? Let's have a look. Okay, so it's thought about it for a minute and let's see what we've got. So here we've got an AI summary of what is higher order metaphysics. It's a branch of metaphysics that investigates entities and properties using higher order logic. Yep, that's right. We got quantification not just over objects, but over properties, relations, functions. Yeah, questions about existence and nature of entities, different ontological categories using higher order quantifier. Okay, that's a really good summary of what this topic is about. It's done a good job there. Other AI tools can do that. So let's see what we get here that's different. So core concepts, higher order quantification with references. So here's the difference I'm seeing between this and some other AI tools. We're getting references for the information it's giving me. Okay, so we've got a bunch of references about higher order quantification. We've got references for ontological categories. Okay. Applications and debates, properties and realism. Yeah, we've got a good reference for that. Metaphysics of time. Okay, this is an interesting one. I didn't really know there was much of a connection between higher order metaphysics and the metaphysics of time, but here it's saying there is. Maybe if I just got that off Google or whatever, I don't know if I would trust it, but it's given me a reference. So there's at least one paper that's talking about a relationship between higher order metaphysics, metaphysics of time. That looks interesting. Historical context, where does this come from? Frager and Russell, that's pretty obvious because that's kind of where everything in analytic metaphysics comes from. But we've got a reference there, and I happen to know that's a really good recent paper that kind of tells us where higher order metaphysics comes from in that kind of historical context. So it's done a pretty good job there. Okay, let's just go and have a look at some of those references in a bit more detail. So here is the list of references that it's come up with. What can I do with those? I can save that paper. So if I'm just skimming a bunch of results and I'm putting in lots of different questions, I can just save the ones I'm interested in and then come back to them later. I can cite the paper. So let's click on that. I've got a bunch of different citation styles. Typically, we're going to use Chicago or Harvard, or if you're writing in LaTeX like I do, you can click on the BibTeX and copy that into your BibDesk or whatever, and that will go nicely in your LaTeX documents. Okay, that's really nice. What else can I do here? Well, for instance, I can see that this paper, it's in Philosophical Studies. Okay, so that's a top journal. So that gives me some kind of confidence that we're talking about high quality, top quality work here. 2020, so it's recent. It's got a bunch of citations. Okay, that's looking really nice. So as well as just having the title of the paper, it's giving me a summary of what goes on in that paper. So this isn't just the abstract. The abstract would be a whole paragraph. This is an AI-generated, like, one-sentence summary of what's going on there. Higher-order realism does not resolve the tropes versus universals dispute, but it can lead to a dissolution of the dispute. Okay, that's interesting. If I'm skimming through loads and loads and loads of references, having a one-liner, that's really useful. Now, sure, I can look at the abstract of the paper. Typically, abstracts are a paragraph long, takes a bit more work, and, authors aren't always great at summarizing their paper. Often I find an AI summary does a better job of extracting what is the really pertinent take-home message, sometimes in a better way than the author themselves do. Okay, so it's picked me out 10 papers on higher order metaphysics. Let's have a look. How many of those 10 papers would I say are kind of really good choices for analysing this topic? Okay, so first paper, Peter Fritz et al. Who exactly is that? Okay, so it's Peter Fritz and Nick Jones. So I know this paper. It's a really, really high quality paper. And I also know that it's in a forthcoming book on higher order metaphysics. So this is a really good choice. And it's one that the search engines found. So that sounds pretty good. We have a paper in Phil Studies. We've got this Kevin Clement one. That's in the same volume as the Fritz and Jones one. It's got another paper by the same guy here, Skiba. This one's in Noose. That's a top-ranked journal as well, so it's picking out good stuff. Here we've got, I think, a book review of Rob Truman's book on higher order metaphysics. This one's in Logic and Logical Philosophy. I would say that is a kind of mid-level journal, and it's picking up a book review. So a better reference here would have been the book, like it could have told me about Rob Truman's book rather than about the book review of Rob Truman's book. Nevertheless, we're not expecting the AI to do a perfect job and take the human out of it, right? We're looking to it to give us some good clues, give us some good starting points. So I might look at this and go, okay, that's a book review of a relevant book. Skip the book review. I'm just going to go straight to the book or get some kind of summary of the book or something like that. Okay. Higher order approach to consciousness. Okay, this is not a particularly good one because this is talking about something completely different. Not higher order metaphysics, but a certain approach to consciousness called the higher order account of consciousness, higher order theory of consciousness. So that one wasn't relevant. Something about metaphysics in somewhere called emotion. Yeah, I wouldn't look at that. Doesn't look relevant to higher order metaphysics. All these papers from 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 onwards, they don't seem particularly relevant to higher order metaphysics. Okay, so the first 5 papers it's given me look absolutely bang on. The next ones, not so sure about that. Okay, so overall, what I'm seeing there is maybe I'm not going to treat every single reference it's given me as being, oh, this is something I definitely need to go and look at. You know, what tool ever does that? Rather, it's giving me enough to go and look at. Okay, so I've done that initial search. What else can I do with consensus? So down the bottom here, it's saying ask a follow-up. So let's ask a follow-up. What does higher order metaphysics say about properties? So I'm not doing a new search. I'm trying to refine or ask something further about that initial query. So let's see what it does. Okay, so again, we've got this summary at the top here, distinguishes between the existence of objects, the existence of properties. Properties are said to exist in a different way than objects, captured by second order quantifiers, sometimes called Phrygian realism. Okay. That is a pretty good summary. Maybe it's not completely clear. This is quite a difficult and nuanced notion of existence. Okay, so if I don't quite get what's going on there, it's suggesting this paper number 3. Okay, it's this Rob Truman thing. I happen to know that's a really good book on the topic. So if I'm completely bamboozled here, I could go and look at that. That's a great suggestion. What are the impacts on metaphysical debates? Dissolving gridlock debates, okay, expressing realism about properties through higher order quantifiers, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that sounds right to me. It's meant to be a way that we can make progress on these seemingly kind of impossible debates like, do properties exist? Well, let's just look at it through this higher order lens. Maybe when we say that properties exist, we mean exists in a different way than when we say shares exist, okay? That's kind of what this is telling me here. Again, we've got those references, the Truman one. Oh, nice one here. A David Liggins one in Synthèse. Should a higher order metaphysician believe in properties? Okay, I didn't know that paper. I know David Liggins stuff is really good. So, if I'm interested in this area, I've learned something there. There's a paper I can go and look at. We get this nice summary table, okay? So if I'm interested in the existence of properties, we got some citations, its role of quantification. Okay, we're talking about second order quantifiers, bunch of references there. Yeah, this is really useful. Okay, so I think by asking an initial question and then following it up, and perhaps I would follow it up with another one, kind of going deeper and deeper, it seems that each time I do that, it has provided me with a bit more useful, a bit more tailored information. So it looks like what it's doing is what an AI should do. The more you go into a topic, the deeper you go, the more information it's giving you. It's not just giving you more kind of random noise. So far, looks good. Let's try a completely different search. Okay, so we're back to the home page. Notice that I've got the pro thing switched on here, enabled pro analysis. So consensus, it is free to use, but there is this pro premium upgrade thing. So what I did is I signed up for the year using the code ATTICPhilosophy1, and that made it completely free for the year. So if you want to give consensus a go, what I would recommend is enabling the pro features, signing up for a year, doing it for free, using that code. That will really give you a sense of, is this going to be useful for you? And if it is, you can stick with it. And if it's not, cancel that and you don't have to pay anything. Okay, let's ask on a completely different topic. And this time, let's do a yes or no question. Is panpsychism a viable theory of the mind? Okay, and because we asked a yes or no question, this time we have the consensus meter. Okay, so this is like telling us out of the papers it's looked at, do they say yes or no to that question? And this is a bit of a surprise to me. It's saying that from 5 relevant papers, 100% of the papers say that panpsychism isn't a viable theory of the mind. Okay, that's a bit surprising to me. Let's have a look at the summary. Okay, so panpsychism offers alternatives to physicalism and dualism, but it faces significant conceptual and explanatory challenges that limit its acceptance. Okay, that sounds right. I think lots of people are interested in panpsychism, but the overall consensus in philosophy might be that it's kind of got some issues. It's not yet an accepted theory. Maybe it won't be. Let's look at the conclusion. Its status as a viable theory remains controversial with significant obstacles. Yeah, I think that's right, okay? That's the kind of nuanced view. It remains controversial. So if I just look at the consensus meter, that's painting a slightly different story, right? That is saying 100% reject it. If 100% reject it, it's not controversial, it's just wrong, right? So I am thinking, let's not pay too much attention to this consensus meter. After all, it's only from 5 papers, right? That's not reflecting the consensus in academic philosophy. Maybe for that we'd need like 100, 500 papers or whatever. I'm thinking, let's take a look at what the conclusion here is saying. And it's basically a bit more nuanced than just that kind of yes or no thing, okay? It's a controversial theory. There are obstacles. Yeah, that stuff is all true. Okay. Let's have a look at some of the references again. Autism and panpsychism. Not sure that's 100% relevant. I don't really know. Does panpsychism explain mental causation? That's a good one. How exactly does panpsychism help explain consciousness? That's a good one. So we've got some really good authors. Philip Goff, for instance, he's one of the leading panpsychists. We've got Journal of Consciousness Studies. That is a natural place to go to if you're thinking about philosophy of mind and consciousness. Kind of strange that it's got a paper from Philip Goff, and yet it's saying that 100% of the papers don't support panpsychism because he's a panpsychist. But what it's actually saying here is that this paper, it's not sure whether that paper supports panpsychism or not. Okay, so maybe that's just because it hasn't worked out the answer properly, or in that paper, Philip Goff might be, giving a nuanced kind of take and not giving a clear conclusion, yes or no. Okay, in the case of these other papers, for instance, this one, it's saying, no, that paper isn't supporting panpsychism, same with this one, and so on. Okay, so it's giving me some good information there. If I want to find papers that don't support panpsychism, that argue against it, these no answers, these are going to be good ones. I can also check it's in, Journal of Consciousness Studies, so it's going to be a relevant journal. That's all looking good. Now, we've got the option to filter these results. So if we click on filter, we can select when the papers were published, how many citations we want them to have, a bunch of stuff that isn't really relevant to philosophy, the quality of the journal according to one rankings. However, whenever I've tried doing this, it gives me some results that seem totally random to me. So, stuff in psychological research, psychological science, Journal of Experimental Child Psychology, really nothing to do with the original query of panpsychism. So I don't really know what's going on there. In theory, that sounds like a useful function to be able to filter my results, but it looks like for the kind of stuff I'm doing here, it's just not working at all. Not sure why that is, but I'm just not going to use that option at all. Okay, so overall, how good a job has Consensus done? So when we're looking at tools like this, we're looking at a tool, okay, something to help me. I might have a whole bunch of different tools, and knowing when to use this one or that one, that's part of the key thing. So I'm not looking at Consensus as, it's just going to do my research for me. I'm not even looking at it as it's going to do my lit review for me. That is really asking too much. And, if it did that for me, it wouldn't be my research, my literature review, right? What I want is something to make the legwork involved in a lot of research simpler and easier. If there's a topic that I know I need to research about, but I don't really know where to start, now I've got somewhere to start. Now, sure, I can go and use Google. I can go and use Google Scholar. In the case of philosophy, I can use a repository like PhilPapers. Typically, all of those approaches are going to give me way too much, like thousands of entries where 90% of them probably aren't going to be relevant, or if they are relevant, they're not going to be high quality or whatever. Consensus is really doing the opposite. it's giving me a very small selection of pretty good, highly relevant, high quality references. Now, does this mean I stop there? No, because maybe it's missed out on some, but it's given me a good starting point. And in one of the cases we looked at, it gave me a book review. Maybe I'm not interested in that book review, but I might be interested in the book. And maybe I wouldn't have known about that without Consensus telling me about it. Okay, from that point onwards, I can start looking at these things. Those papers will reference other papers, and then I'm in the game. Another feature that I really, really liked is the one-line summaries of the papers. I can quickly go through this and say, yep, that looks really relevant to me. No, that one doesn't look really relevant. Another thing I really liked is the way that Consensus handled the follow-up questions. So often with AI, you have your first kind of take on what you want to know, and it doesn't quite get hold of what you are after. So what I can do here is, rather than just searching again from scratch and trying to get it right, I can ask that first question, then I can ask a follow-up, maybe another follow-up, and each time it seems like it's giving me better, higher quality, more relevant information. So there might be a process of kind of getting used to the kind of questions that Consensus wants you to ask, but I think learning a bit about how it works is going to give you really good results once you've played around with it. Okay guys, so you let me know what you think. Is this something you think is going to be useful in your research? Have you used it? Have you found any features that you think are going to be useful to other viewers of the channel? And remember, we've got that code down in the description so you can get a year of the pro version for free. If you found this content useful, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee over on Ko-Fi. That always helps out. Thanks to the guys over at Consensus for sponsoring this video. Thank you to my Ko-Fi supporters for supporting the channel and making all of this content possible. And thanks to you for watching this far. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys back on Attic Philosophy soon.